Hello everyone, Melody here, Mama 4 in our blended family of 6. Welcome to Homeschool Happy Hour. Today's video is kind of like a part 2 of a video that I did about 2 years ago, Homeschool Mom in the Classroom. So 2 years ago, I did a video talking about what it was like in the public schools from a homeschool mom perspective. And that was mostly focused on elementary years and the elementary school. Today, I want to do a video that is shifting a little bit and focusing on what the public school is like in the classroom from a homeschool mom's perspective in the high school levels. Welcome if you are new here. My name is Melody. I've been homeschooling for 10 years now. We are in our 10th year of homeschool. I have 4 kiddos in our blended family of 6, and one of them has graduated from high school. The other is a junior in high school this year. The third is a homeschooler, but she's actually participating in 2 courses at the public high school this year. And my youngest is a 7th grader, all homeschool all the time. I am a substitute teacher in the public schools. I have been a long-term substitute, but usually I'm just short-term day-to-day substitute. I have been a school board member for our local public school, and I worked full-time in the public school before having children. So I'm very familiar with the public school system from all different perspectives and directions. I am a firm advocate of homeschooling, so before we go any further, please take a second to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and follow along because we talk about all things homeschool, homeschool life, homeschool curricula, all that fun stuff. We are a secular homeschooling family, and I love connecting with all of you. So make sure you drop a comment in the box below. If you're new here, give me a shout and let me know how long you have been homeschooling. This is my 3rd year working as a substitute in the public schools. Last year, I took on a long-term position and finished out having my own classroom during the last quarter of the school year at the elementary level. And this year is my first year having one of my homeschoolers go to the public school high school, and I've actually spent a lot more time this year substituting in the high school and the junior high than I had previously. Normally I spend most of my time with the early elementary kiddos, but I've gotten a real deep inside look of the high school situation this year, and so I wanted to do a follow-up video specifically about junior high school, public school experience from a homeschool perspective. Now, before I go any further, just like I said in the other video, my observations here are based on the system, not on any particular staff members. I find that the teachers in the public school, if anything, they deserve our gratitude and our respect. They are working hard every day, usually with 2 hands tied behind their back, and they still show up with a smile on their face, giving their best to the kids in our schools on all levels. And I am so grateful for them and for all that they do. So I do have some, I don't know if you would say complaints, some unpleasant observations, criticisms about the system, but at no point is that about the staff members, the support staff, the teachers, the custodians, even the administration that's in the schools. My hat goes off to them, and I thank them for all the work that they do. But that being said, as with the other video, from a homeschooling perspective, one of the things that I have heard most often over the years of homeschooling is, well, you're going to put them in public school for high school, right? And for many, many years, I assumed that I might because I doubted my ability to homeschool high school. Everyone had me convinced that I needed the experts and I needed the teachers at the public school in order to provide my children with a quality education at that level. Now, at this point in time, I found that to be completely false. I feel like that is false on every level. There's also the argument of socialization. I did have a video recently come out about socialization where we talk more about that, but as it relates to today, there's this idea that in high school, they need to be there to have that social opportunity. And that's what inspired me to make this video for you guys. Let me talk about what the public school classroom at the high school level looks like. As a substitute teacher, I think when I go into the classroom, it's going to look different than when their daily teacher is there. I accept and acknowledge that. I am probably doing different things with the students than what the teacher would be doing, particularly at the high school level. When we come to the elementary school level, they often trust me as a substitute to go ahead and do the lessons and work through it with the kids. At the high school level, they don't know who they're going to have as their substitute. If I go and I substitute in an algebra class, they don't know if the person that's coming in is strong in math or if I even understand the curriculum. So it's very rare that I, as a substitute at the high school, I don't think it's ever happened where I've been given a lesson to teach. It's typically, they have pre-assigned assignments that they're given time to work on, or we have videos that we watch, or I supervise as they have a guest speaker, or something like that. Ironically, as a substitute teacher at the high school level, I feel more like a babysitter than I do at the elementary level, where I can actually engage in tasks with the kids. But even as a babysitter, I can make observations about the classrooms, right? So not necessarily about the content of what they're learning, although I'll touch on that briefly. Almost none of the schools have books. Or I meant to say classes, not schools. But classes at my local school. Every student has their own little Chromebook, which is just like a little laptop computer if you're not familiar with that. And they have Google Classroom. And so all of their assignments from all of their classes, if they take full courses, they have 7 classes at our school, are on their computer. And so they go from class to class, they open their computer and they work on their computer. I have a problem with this. First of all, I like books. I think there's value in books. I feel like we spend too much time on computers, even as adults or teenagers. There's way too much screen time. I feel like it takes away from engagement. The materials that I'm able to offer my high schoolers or my high schooler, my students at a high school level, through books and interaction far outweigh anything that they could receive from a computer. Now, I'm sure there's a gradient. There are probably teachers that do a lot of interactive tasks, and there may be teachers that do more offline stuff. Speaking to the staff, some are on one end of the spectrum while others are on the other. You're just gonna have different approaches. But overall, based on what the students and the staff are telling me, the majority of what they're doing is on Google Classroom, on a screen. That's what they're doing. The amount that they are able to cover academically is far less than what we are able to cover as a homeschool family. Now, I can't tell you exactly what they're doing in their lessons. I'm not giving the lessons, but having had a graduate from high school and having a junior in high school and now having my homeschool student attending 2 courses at the high school, it's very evident to me and to them that they don't cover that much stuff. And there's a reason for that. There's not a lot of time. They have a 45-minute class, right? If everyone comes in behaving perfectly, which we'll get to behavior in a second, but if everyone comes in, it's perfectly smooth, they've got 45 minutes. Let's say it takes them at least 5 minutes to just get settled in class, get your supplies out. The last 5 minutes of class are pretty much shot because everyone's putting their stuff away, they're looking at the clock, they're ready to go. That brings us down to 35 minutes of class. Let's say you have a lesson that's maybe 15, 20 minutes long on average for a lesson given. Then we've got, where are we at? 15 minutes would give us 20 minutes left of class, or 15 minutes left of class to actually go through the work. If you have students that need help, that have questions, and you have a classroom that ranges from 18 to 32 students in one class, your ability as a teacher to give them that one-on-one assistance is going to be pretty limited. So the amount that you can cover is really limited, like a lot. The materials that they have that I've seen that my kids are working on, their understanding of things, it's like they just scratch the surface on everything. In-depth learning is really not common. They do have some AP classes, some advanced classes where they get a little bit more in depth. But even that, to me, what they cover in an AP class at the high school, when I look at it, it's like bare minimum. And that's supposed to be their highest standard of course. And then you have testing that they're expected to do. Everything is based on, did you pass this test? Did you not pass this test? And we still have that situation where whether you understand the material or not, we're moving on. So we've got the grade system, which I have my own issues with. We don't grade our work here at home. We keep at it till we understand it and then we move on. But let's think of the grade system as like building a house, right? So they say a C is average. If you have a C on any particular topic or in a class in general, it means you understand that material at about a 70%. You understand about 70% of the material that, as I mentioned earlier, is already at a minimum level of information. And they say that's good enough. That's good enough. We're going to move on. We're going to stack something else on top of that. As you move forward, it becomes harder and harder to keep up with the material for the individual. But more importantly, if you built a house and you said, here's your foundation, it's fine, just build 70% of it. What's going to happen is you add the next level or the next level. Is your house structurally going to be strong? Is your house going to be a safe home that you can trust to keep your family? No, it's not. Nobody would ever think that that is acceptable, because if your foundation is not strong, if each layer that you build upon is not strong, everything will crumble. And that is the system that we have for public school, when a 70% is good enough. And when you have kids that are getting D's in their classes and still passing and moving on to the next level, because a D is passing, and it's all based on this test. Now, maybe they understand it more because they're just not great test takers and they're just being judged unfairly based on their system of evaluation. Or maybe they're just really good test takers and they remembered everything and they scored 100% on the test, or even set the curve as higher, and they don't remember anything 2 weeks later. Like this person. Like, I'm an excellent test taker. I can take a test, I can memorize it, I can set the curve in a class. Academically, I am on it. But if I don't need it and if I'm not using it, it's gone. I forgot it. It doesn't even matter to me anymore. I've moved on to something different. And so this brings me to my next issue. We have our students at the high school level. So much is judged based on their academic success. Now, when our oldest graduated a couple years ago, she was one of, this is a thing now, I don't know if this is a thing in your school, it wasn't a thing when I was a kid, she was one of the valedictorians. They had multiple valedictorians that graduated in her class. And one of the other valedictorians did an amazing speech at the end. And I remember he was talking about how he got to stand up there as a valedictorian. You know, you're supposed to be the prime of your class. He was like, but I'm no better than anybody else. There are kids here who maybe got D's and F's in their courses, but they can do things that I could never do in other areas. And our system judges us based on one metric alone, and that is grades. And that metric is so limited and really so unfair and not an appropriate thing to judge us on. And I agree with him wholeheartedly, 110%. I agree with him on that. And that is exactly what they're doing. You have kids who are struggling academically, but maybe are incredibly strong in other areas that are not allowed to grow. They're not feeling successful. They're not feeling supported because their grades aren't prime, when there's so much more to a person than grades. Also, as a homeschool versus high school observation, my oldest kiddo, did incredibly well. Like I said, she was valedictorian in her class, and she's a great kid, smart kid. By the time she got out of school, she had no idea what she wanted to do, which is not uncommon. Most people coming out of high school don't know what they want to do when they grow up. They don't really have a drive or a passion for anything. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with they haven't had the opportunity. They haven't had the opportunity to dip their toe in the things that interest them and to really dig into them and to develop their own personal passions and characteristics. Whereas our homeschoolers, particularly as high schoolers, there's so much opportunity there to develop yourself as a person and what you love. And so you can be passionate about things. When I talk to homeschoolers, from high school level homeschoolers, and I talk to public school kids, time and time again, the homeschool students, they know what they want. They know what they love. They're invested. I don't think this idea of not knowing what you want and not having an idea where you want to go in life, I don't think that has as much to do with age as it does with opportunity. And I don't think our public school kids are given the opportunity to really explore and embrace who they are. And it leaves them kind of drifting when they get out of high school. Let's move on to another observation. My next observation is behavior/social situations. A lot of people think that high school is very important for social situations. And I would like to break this down a little bit. You have groups, small groups of students that excel socially in high school. The vast majority do not. For the vast majority of public school, high school students, the social situation at the school is not a healthy one, it's not a positive one, and it's not something they want to participate in or repeat. I think we really need to acknowledge that. We have this idea in our head like that picture perfect high school situation is what everyone gets when they go there, and that's just not true. It's just not. Some kids really like that. Some kids really embrace it and they love it, and that's great. But how much is that bending who they are versus allowing them to be their own self? And how much of that is influencing them in ways that are not healthy and not productive? And then for the kids who it's not a positive experience for, why are we making them do that? I go in there and I see the majority of kids in the hallway and in the classroom, even not as a sub, but just observing in other classrooms, they're spending most of the time not just on the laptop screen that they have, but on their phones, because a lot of teachers have given up at this point. Like, yeah, we've got rules about phones, but it's not worth it to enforce them because I don't want to fight with this kid, because their behaviors are so extreme that teachers don't want to fight with students. They don't want to engage. And I think that doesn't fall on the shoulders of the public school. I think that falls on parenting. And we've got like an epidemic of a lack of parenting because people send their kids to public school and they think that's the school's job. Everything's the school's job. The school's responsible for all of this, but the school can't hold all that up. They have too many students and too many things on their plate, and parents are the ones that need to step up and teach their children how to behave. When I go into a classroom and I've got significant numbers of kids just on their phone, dropping the F-bomb, making phone calls, doing all this. Now somebody could say, well, it's just because you're a substitute. Maybe. But as a substitute, if I have to reprimand the class because they can't be respectful for 5 minutes for me to take attendance, I'm sorry, but writing me off as you're just the substitute, therefore their behavior isn't really the problem. They're not like that all the time. First of all, I've been in the class as a para sub where the teacher's really there and I'm just kind of a support person, they still act that way. So it isn't just that I'm the substitute. But even if I was just the substitute, why is it that our high school age children do not know how to behave respectfully? Respectfully of themselves, respectful of their peers, respectful of the adults, respectful of the property. I've got kids that are making phone calls, dropping the F-bomb, just laying on the ground in the back of class, taking a nap. They don't care. Like the vast majority of them don't care. You've got a class, I had a class the other day, I have 30 kids, roughly. I would say out of 30 kids, maybe 5 chose to work diligently on the assignment. Probably, I don't know, of the ones that were left, maybe a third of them were kind of goofing off, hanging out with peers, not really doing the assignment. And another third of them were just being obnoxious, rude, and inappropriate. And then maybe another third of them are napping or they don't care. This is what it looks like inside the public school classroom. Oh, there's a bug. This is what our homeschoolers are missing. We've got kids in there that, don't get me started on dress code, because do they have a dress code? Yes. Does anyone respect it or enforce it? No, they don't. The things that kids are wearing out in public, and there's just this idea now that people should be able to wear whatever they want because we're taking away from their learning if we comment on their attire. And I'm like, the way you present yourself in the world matters. Whether it's right or wrong, people will judge you based on the way you look. You should present yourself in a way that suggests that you respect yourself and you respect the people around you. Maybe I'm just really old school. Let me know what you think there. Is that just way too old school for people? Because to me, that just seems like common sense. And so we've got crazy behaviors, inappropriate dress, everyone's on their phone, disrespectful to everyone, mostly themselves. None of them really seem to have any level of investment. Even the ones that are doing well, they're like, I'm doing well because I want to get this good grade. I'm doing well because I want to be valedictorian. I'm doing well because I want this. Nobody says or expresses or behaves in a way that says to me, I want to learn. I am interested in what my education is for myself and where that will take me in my life. That's just not a thing. On the flip side, as homeschoolers, that's everything. That's everything for us. And so when people suggest to me that, your homeschooler is missing out because they're not in the public school classroom, I scoff, if you will, at that. And yes, one of my homeschoolers is taking 2 courses at the public school, and I am letting her do that. I'm not a huge fan of it. She's doing well. I think it's a great opportunity for her to implement the standards that we have helped her develop, even in an environment that's lax in standards. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but that's the best way I can think to put it. She says she's enjoying taking those couple classes, and she also says there's no way that I could be there all day. Like, absolutely not. I could not be there all day. If we had to choose and it was she could take no classes or all classes, I won't at this point. She will not take all classes. She doesn't want to, so that's easy. But as a parent, I would not agree to that because I just don't feel like it would be in her best interest. If your child is not going to public school for high school, they're not missing anything. Just as if they're in elementary school, they're not missing anything. At the junior high level, I've listened to the staff comment on how there are children in the school they're afraid of. There are kids there that are so violent, they don't want to try and modify the student's behavior because they're afraid of how that student will react. They'd rather just tolerate the behavior. One of my very good friends is a teacher. I think on one of the first days of school, cover your ears, but on one of the first days of school, she had a kid call her an effing bitch. this is how students and the children in our society are being taught to treat people. And I think there's a lot of reasons why that's happening. None of them are good. And those things rub off on the kids that are around them that are still having parents that don't teach their kids that. And so if you can homeschool your kid through high school, it's so doable. It's so possible. It's so to their benefit and yours. And the things that they can learn, it's astounding. It's absolutely astounding what a student, as a homeschool student, can learn through their high school years without public school. Anyway, I hope that that video made sense. Hopefully it was inspiring to you. I really just want you to know that you can do this. You're not missing out on things. There's no special event or social piece that's happening at the public school that is so critical that your student needs to be there. Keeping them home is doing them a favor. And I hope that your homeschool experience continues to be a positive one for you and your students. If you're interested in my views on elementary, check out that other video. But for today, that is all I have for you, and I will catch you next time.